Hello, and welcome to Staying Awake.
I have a sleeping disorder. I can't tell the difference between my waking life and dreams.
Hello, and welcome to Staying Awake.
Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University. I am your professor, Mario Rivera, and joining me is someone who's obviously talking about Stadia Summer. Some were speaking about it. I, of course, my good friend here, Aaron. Aaron, how are you doing?
I am so good. I'm excited to talk Moon Knight with you. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm stoked. We haven't really made any content together, despite how much we interact on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm actually. It's funny. We interact a few times. I think in just general senses, like people's streams. But I don't actually think we've actually been on official thing. So thank you so much for being here at MCU.
Yeah, I love it. I'm excited.
No, if you can, please, by all means, this is your moment. Tell people who you are. Who are you? What's your familiarity with Marvel Cinematic Universe, and what do you do right now as a content creator?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, of course, as you said, Aaron Cini. I have two podcasts, three. One's just on hiatus. I am a co-host with the one and only from Pip.
That's right.
Fiona on Speaking of Stadia with Jake Porter as well. And then if you don't know of a little tiny internet celebrity named Internet Mel, me and her have the show Give Me 20, a 20-minute short form comedy podcast.
That's awesome.
And then I'm also the host of a show called Awesomely Average, just an interview type show. One average dude interviewing awesome people. That one has been on hiatus as I go through some life stuff, but I'm hoping to bring that one back soon.
No, definitely. If you ever need guests for that, you know who to reach out to. There you
Oh,
go.
absolutely. You know.
Internet Bell, love that person. Would love to be able to talk to them more about fun things as well. But very much awesome that you have that show. That sounds awesome. I actually did not know you were doing it in a podcast, so I'm going to check that out today, just like everyone else should. So please check it. Where can we find all that?
You've not heard of the Legend of Give Me 20 with Mel Felker?
No, I have not.
Oh, man. Yeah, it is a awesome show that you can find on podcast services around the globe. I can't not do the Greg Miller thing sometimes. But yeah, you can find that everywhere. We stick it to exactly 20 minutes. So no matter what we're talking about in the middle of any topic, if it hits 20 minutes, we shut the show down. We're done.
Beautiful.
It's a hell of a good time. Our last episode that we just posted Monday, was an advice show. Mm-hmm. So people wrote in and just wanted advice from us, and we let them know what's up with life. So absolutely go check that out. It's a lot of fun.
No, that sounds like a blast. So yeah, please go check that out. Check everything else that Aaron is working on, because it's awesome. Now, I'm basically got you through the rigmarole. Got to introduce my guest. We're here, of course, talking about 2022's Moon Knight, the 6-episode miniseries. Season 2 pending, maybe? We'll find out shortly, of Moon Knight. It very much wraps up. So, well, not really. Actually, there's a fun cliffhanger if you stay to the very end.
Yes.
But yes, we were talking about the continuing story of Marvel making characters into TV shows. This show, of course, stars Oscar Isaac in multiple roles. That's what I'll say. I'll start off by saying that. And then, of course, has F. Murray Abraham as the voice of Khonshu. And then we also have Ethan Hawke, which, if you've been following me for a while, I'm a huge Ethan Hawke fan. This has been the greatest. And a bunch of lovely other people as well. First off, I just want to say, this show, I really wish that these shows were just multiple episodes a week, because the drip feed of the one episode, very much hard when it comes to trying to make content about it. So that's why we decided to just do one full episode here with Aaron. So, but Aaron, what were your thoughts on MCU's Moon Knight?
I will jump right into the last thing you just said.
Yeah.
The once a week thing, I actually thought hurt this show more than any other MCU show.
Yeah.
Because the cliffhangers didn't leave me starving, they left me confused and therefore almost frustrated.
Yes.
So I would have loved 2 episodes a week, or this be the first time that they experiment with like the binge, just full dump. Here's all 6 episodes, go for it.
Yeah.
I really struggled with the Wednesday to Wednesday on this one. I love how confusing it is. It's very reminiscent of the Lemire comic book run,
Yes.
just like where you're not really sure what's real, you're not really sure what's going on. But then I don't know. It's just like every week I found myself like, oh, right, that happened. Oh, okay. Like the confusion wasn't cohesive enough to let me remember the next episode.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree that you should have, like, they should have just done more drops. A friend of mine asked me if I would recommend this show, and my reaction was I would recommend binging this show. I think it's worth running through the 6 episodes. But this was like week 2 or 3 when they had asked me if they should jump in. And I was like, honestly, I think you should actually wait and then just fly through it. So that's kind of my initial thoughts. What about you?
Overall, like I said, I think that the pacing of the show did not help with how they were trying to portray the story. So I feel that with this show specifically, I would have preferred it in 2 episode chunks as opposed to it just sort of just leaving us out for the full, I think it was the full 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, on this one. And Halo, I think, was like 2 episodes. Oh, no, that was Better Call Saul. That's a totally different other show. So we went 6 weeks of just trying to unravel this mystery, which ultimately I don't think was much of a mystery, in fairness. It's pretty straightforward. I just don't know why they had to do all the cloak and daggers around it. Yeah. I think I understand why, specifically of the final piece of the show, but we'll talk about this in a second. We'll try to stay a little spoilery free for just the first 10 minutes, and then we'll go full on in. Real quick, though, what is your history with Moon Knight as a character? I know you just mentioned the Jeff Lemire run. Was that your first introduction to the character, or were you also from previously?
No, I've been reading Moon Knight comics, not consistently like other characters, but I've been following Moon Knight since I was 8 years old. I just always thought he was a really cool looking character.
He is a very cool
I adored like the mystery around him. You know, he had his classic 90s run, as most Marvel comics did, where they kind of ditched a lot of it and just made him a badass. And I was totally down for that. Yeah, he's been, I wouldn't say one of my favorite characters, but out of the obscure Marvel character list, he's the one that I've probably followed the most. So I was thrilled that they announced this. I was stoked about Oscar Isaac coming in. I can't decide if they've done him justice yet. But yeah, that's what I'll say. So I've been reading Moon Knight for a really long time.
No, that's good. In a similar way, like I've always seen the character, and I was like, oh, Moon Knight. It's interesting that I don't know many stories about him, especially like on a Batman level. Like you got Batman has 1,000 different like iterations of like the Dark Knight Returns, family, the death of the family, all these things. And I couldn't tell you, but luckily with the power of Marvel Unlimited and the show cross marketing, they actually have been like giving away free copies of like issues in the episodes, which has been really cool. They have
nice.
They have little QR codes.
With the QR codes.
There's QR codes in every episode, which is really cool.
Did you know that some of the QR codes are flipped in certain mirror images? And if you scan the reflection, it's a whole different issue.
Get out of here. That isn't. All right. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But
pretty legit.
That was like, you know what? Let's check out Marvel Unlimited. Actually, Xbox Live luckily gave you like 3 months of it for free. So nice. I was like, all right, I'll take a look at it. And sure enough, the Jeff Lemire run is the first thing you kind of see on there because they're marketing the show heavily on the app. And so I started diving into it. And then when I started reading it, I actually was in the middle of episode 3, I believe. I don't want to say what, I think it's called Asylum. That's the title of the episode.
Yep.
That's when I was starting to like, oh, so it's like this book. And so then it started helping me out a little bit, kind of process the things, because these are all characters that I've never met before. Never met Stephen Grant or Jake Lockley or any of that. So very curious about how to learn through Moon Knight through this issues. And I was actually entertained. I'm almost done with that book. But what I wanted to say was towards this show, right? As someone who knows barely anything for Moon Knight, at the end of the 6 episodes, like I said, if you got all through all of them, I think it was satisfying by the time you get to the end.
Yes, I agree.
I don't know how I felt at the beginning because I knew a lot about the main character. By the way, the show follows a guy who wakes up and he can basically has powers of the moon gods, and he fights things, but he also has multiple personalities, and sometimes he doesn't remember things that are happening, and it gets twisty windy, and it's a very interesting story, but it's very hard to describe, I would say, right off the bat, without spoiling major things. But yeah, overall, I think that the end journey led to the success of the show in terms of like me getting there. if I had all the context of the whole thing. Just drip feeding me the episodes, I didn't know where they were going. And I feel like that's totally against the show. I mean, like when you watch a movie, you're there for that set amount of time, you're beginning, middle, and end. When you're watching a show, you're like, you don't know the journey you're on, if it's worth it until you get to a certain point. Right. And I honestly didn't think the journey was worth it until I get to that Asylum titled episode. And then I started falling kind of like interested in what they were doing. But yeah, overall, where did you think, compared to your knowledge already, like, were there things that you're happy you got to see in live action or versus like in the comic books?
Yes. Seeing Moon Knight himself was a lot of fun for me. And then seeing how they decided to play the multiple personalities. In the Lemire run, it's very, very different. Stephen Grant's actually like a famous film producer. Yes. There's this really good like meta humor of him producing a Moon Knight movie in the MCU. And like that's really entertaining and funny. So I wasn't sold on that character flip to start, but by the end of it, I loved this iteration of Stephen Grant. I thought he was fantastic. Damn near a scene stealer, even though it's still Oscar Isaac who's playing Mark. But like, yes, I really fell in love with his version of Stephen Grant and really enjoyed what he brought to the table with it. So it took me like a minute to adjust. But you were talking about, you weren't sure, like, is this a journey worth going on? I actually felt the exact same way about the Lemire run. Yeah. Okay. I was like, do I want to stick with this? Like, I am so confused and I actually can't tell what's real. And they don't really give you a lot of information to begin with. And what ended up hooking me was like different personalities had different art styles, but they were all full blown different realities of what was happening. And so I couldn't not put it down. And I think that's what the show was early on. I was like so frustrated, but at the same time, I was like, but I have to keep going.
And it ultimately was, I think, the character interaction between Oscar Isaac and Oscar Isaac for the most part. Yes. You know, as much as I love Ethan Hawke, and I love him in this role as just the scene stealing, like I'm going to monologue to the day is long, his character doesn't do much at all. No. If anything interesting, I would say, other than he accomplishes his goal. Like, you know, that's just, you know, he tries to go for that. Like, that to me ultimately is the downfall of the show. But I still think though that without Oscar Isaac, this does not push forward. At least in my mind, could another actor have been this character, have been both Steven and brought them to life in the way that they did? I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious how that would go personally.
I think they could, but I just don't think it would have been as good. Yeah, there's multiple times throughout, and I also love Ethan Hawke. Yes, but there was multiple times I was like, man, I hope they gave Oscar Isaac a check for carrying this show on his back. Yeah. Because damn, is he really pushing the story forward in some of these episodes.
Yeah, no, 100%, especially when we get to the later half. So I think for now, the consensus is we like the show. We have issues with it. Do we recommend it? Do you recommend this?
I do, 100%. If you're a Marvel fan at all, like I think it's at least worth running through these 6 episodes in 2 days.
Yeah. And I could even say definitively, you could probably enjoy this if you don't want to enjoy anything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's nothing that you need as a requirement to watch this. Even after the show ends, there's nothing that's like, in my mind.
Which was fascinating. I really thought we would get at least one stinger to plug it into the MCU machine.
Yes.
Never.
There's minor, references to like events. Like I know that the show takes place during like Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier time, just because of a specific line or reference that is made. But other than that, there's no like we're leading to this big bad. We're doing, it's just a complete one and done story that easily could have just be that's the Moon Knight story. Is there a continuation within that? Yes, but we'll see if they do either a season 2 or a movie or like whatever they decide to do. Yeah. The future is obviously still wide open, and that actually makes me happy in a sense of like I have no direction what you're gonna do with that character. So
Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke both said that they signed on to this because it had zero connection. Yes. They were like, that intrigued us so much. Like, we want to go play in this world without feeling like we're just going to be shoehorned into a world. Yeah. So I went in with that expectation, knowing that that's how they had kind of talked about the show, and that helps.
No, for sure. And they've stuck to that. That's 100% true. So yeah, definitely, I would say check it out. So from this moment forward, we're going to just openly talk spoilers, talk about character moments and special things that have happened. So this is your warning. You have been warned. So Aaron, what was your favorite moment on the show? You can openly spoil whatever you'd like.
Oh, we're talking favorite moment. So
Yeah.
Spider-Man, I don't know if you know, just turned 20 years old. The original
Yes.
Tobey Maguire movie.
Yes.
That was the era of superhero movies where the superheroes weren't superheroes until like that final 20 to 30 minutes. And then they got their cool suit and they got to fight the big bad. And it was really, really cool and exciting. And all you wanted at the end of that was like, God, I can't wait for the sequel now that this is established.
True.
That's how I felt at the end of this finale.
Really?
With him swapping suits and beating the shit out of people. And you get Mr. Knight and you get Moon Knight. And they're swapping around and he's throwing discs and Mr. Knight's pulling out his nightsticks. I was just like, God damn, like this is what I've wanted for 6 episodes. I've wanted to see Moon Knight go and be Moon Knight. So that was my like hype moment for sure.
Yeah.
And then my favorite moment though is actually pretty much the entire Asylum episode where they have to balance the scales.
Yes.
And they're running through the ship, not Asylum, I guess it's the one right after that.
Yeah.
But them actually exploring how Mark created Steven and why that matters. And like, not to get super real on a Marvel show, but like I am a child who grew up in a house of abuse. So that like meant a ton to me. I was like, holy shit, this is hitting way harder than it should for a Moon Knight show. Like what is happening? But that entire reveal of how he created Steven and why Steven mattered, that I was like, okay, this show is something different. And I really, really like it.
I'm going to piggyback off that scene specifically because, yes, that episode is still my favorite, the way that they were able to depict that. As someone who has dealt with certain things in life, it is interesting for a series to talk directly for people sometimes.
Yes.
And for kids who've had experienced that and had to deal with those instances, to have someone be represented and for them to love, the end goal was to just love yourself. At the end, and even if yourself is another version of you, which I loved, is like, you didn't deserve that when you were this, age, should not have never have happened. So you can forgive yourself because there's nothing to be wrong. There was nothing wrong for you to be in the first place. So yes, loved that episode very much. So that whole journey. It also helps that you find out he's from Chicago. And it's because he has a Cubs sign in the background, and they're on Milwaukee Street, which is in the north side. So that was very fun for me to pick up. However, there's no caves in Chicago. I don't understand that scene. But
and the genuine like Jewish culture ties in that they did.
Oh my God. There's not only that, but at the very end, when we finally get the third fucking identity, which of course, spoilers, exactly is real. He's also Spanish. And I'm like, yes, like that. I was so happy. I was like, how are they going to tie this with Oscar Isaac? I'm like, that's perfect. Everyone wanted this Brooklyn brawler. I'm like, that's fine. We got an American here. We have the British person here. We have the Jewish character here. Now we also have the Spanish character.
It's time to bring in that Latino. I like that flip a lot.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. I also thought it was really interesting that as that episode progressed of showing his backstory, I was like, oh, he created Steven to protect him.
Yes.
So because he was the brave one, right? So he's like, I'm going to create this new identity to protect me from what's going on with my mother.
Yes.
But then you find out that no, he actually created Steven as an escape and as a way to remember things fondly. When he gives him his speech of like, no, I gave you a good life.
Yes.
Like you had a good job. You had your own apartment. He's like, I'm the one out here killing people.
Yeah.
I'm the one out here dealing with all this crap.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you were created so I could have something that resembles happiness.
Yes.
I was like, God damn, this show.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, all the frustration I had, like it's just washed away in these moments of like, I don't know. That's when Oscar Isaac, I thought, shined the strongest. And the writing of these two characters became such one to me and like how that actually works. I wasn't super stoked on how they were handling multiple personality disorder at first.
Yeah.
The very, very first episode, sure. I liked the kind of flip flop between you're not really sure he blacks out, all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't sold on it as a disorder until that episode. And then I was like, okay, you're actually doing this piece of this character justice. And that's really important.
Yeah, I can fully back that because the reason the frustration I think was on happening early on was we were introduced to a character that seemingly was not the original person, right?
Right.
We're following Steven, who from just on Jump afterwards, you learn that he is not the original proprietor of that body. It's actually Mark Spector. And I know the character of Mark Spector, like that's the name I've heard forever. So I actually wasn't aware of Stephen Grant as a thing. So to me, I was like, why am I feeling more about this if this is going to end up being a situation where the character goes away? You know, like whenever okay, here's an example of a bad example of the story. Me and Myself and Irene. All right. I enjoy that movie for some things. But sure. I can understand like the problem with that. Like to me, this was obviously for this specific way of how they handled it, of how to incorporate it, fighting to the end of finding acceptance and being able to be living with a part of both. Like he ends up now basically coexisting with Steven. And I think that's what's fantastic about the show so far. And, you know, in Me, Myself, and Irene, it was sort of like, fucking, you're gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just,
right.
Yeah. You're a problem and I'm expelling you, as opposed to like, no, you're not the problem. There's a reason why you exist in the first place.
And I need to accept that piece of me.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I need to accept that, not as like, I don't want to be you, like none of that shit. So yeah, I think that was, I wish I had early on in the show, but I feel like the way they laid it out with that episode, if I just got to that, then I think the show's journey, in my opinion, is worth it.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so I would say in terms of that whole episode, I give them applause for that one specifically.
Yes.
There are stuff also that I actually really enjoyed about the show, and this is a few criticisms that actually my friend Frank, Point in Progress, brought up. Is he obviously wanted the brawler, like sort of like street level Moon Knight, which you kind of alluded to earlier. We were saying like the end of the show is like him actually like whooping ass and like doing something like that. I want that too for sure. But I'm happy that with this show that we got sort of like an Indiana Jones meets the Mummy kind of section of it. Because I don't get enough of those movies. I love those sort of like adventure stuff. And we definitely haven't gotten a good Mummy movie or Indiana Jones in a long time. And so, other than, I'm counting Jumanji. Jumanji.
I thought you were about to say Uncharted.
Or even the what is it? Uncharted's fine. I didn't hate it, but Jungle Cruise was also like this as well.
Jungle Cruise was absolutely like an Indiana Jones film with The Rock.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And then so he's been doing that for a while, which has been hilarious. But like to me, like going into the tombs, like, you know, solving the puzzles, going through and like doing stuff. Like I'm a huge fan of the Fraser Mummy movies. And so to me kind of get that feeling back, I was like, this is kind of cool. I dig this sort of adventure.
Yeah.
Especially when you get to the evil mummy part, which I thought was hilarious. So, but when I read the Jeff Lemire one, I was like, oh, that's funny. That's from there too.
Sorry, I won't bring him on camera necessarily. But
Okay.
Bubba, what word did we use?
Frustrated.
Because it was frustrated and what? Excited. Frustrated.
Frustrated.
We kept saying we were frustrated. We were frustrated and excited about what's happening. Like, there's not enough Moon Knight happening.
Yes.
But we're still excited about what's happening.
Yes. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the things that you think that Moon Knight could have done better? Other than we already talked about the pacing of it. Was there anything else there that you felt like that they didn't accomplish well? Because I know people point out, the one thing I will say specifically that people point out is green screen. Is it justified? Is the green screen justified because of the last few episodes has a kaiju fight?
No, I don't think it's justified as frustration. I think it's a TV budget, and I've seen so much worse, but I'm also a huge Smallville fan, so maybe I can't talk on this. Like, it didn't bother me at all. Like, I saw it, don't get me wrong, but I just accepted it and moved on. Probably the biggest thing that I feel like we missed out on is we didn't explore the hero of Moon Knight.
Yeah.
He shows up, I think, 4 times in the entire 6-run episode. 5 if you count the one flashback where it's just him turning into costume and it's it.
Yes.
Like, I feel like if you were introduced to this character and you didn't read the comics and you don't really know much about him, you truly don't know anything about this hero. You know a ton about Mark and Steven, but Moon Knight is very vague in that he can pull this off, and then sometimes he's wearing a suit with sticks, and we know he has like a Deadpool healing factor.
Yeah,
but like
seemingly,
and randomly he can fly, which we don't know until the finale. He can just apparently get up and go, despite he was jumping on like building to building earlier in the season.
Yes.
So I thought they should have established the actual hero more. Like, what are his abilities? How does this function? Any explanation about what does Khonshu actually bring to his ability table?
Yeah.
I thought would have been really beneficial.
Yeah.
Even if it was just an expo dump.
No, for sure. Like, I was just curious, like, what his limitations are and all that.
Right.
Like, he just seemed like an all power being all of a sudden, and then randomly not as well. I guess that to me, he became more powerful, obviously, when both the, both Steven and Mark were kind of coalescing, and that's when that. But then there's that fun moment, obviously, and I say fun. I know people were angry about it. There's clearly the moments when Mark blacks out and they don't realize what's happened. We now understand that was obviously Lockley. Right. But I understand how people were like, oh, and all of a sudden the fight was over, which happens at the very end with Harrow.
I thought the beginning, it was fine to do that over and over. And then they stopped leaning on that.
Yes.
Until the finale. And that was to tease Lockley.
Yeah.
I go back and forth on that in the pilot. I was okay with it in the pilot because we're supposed to be seeing what's going on with Steven's journey.
Yeah.
So to like kind of be a little weird with it was totally cool with me because he doesn't know and we're supposed to be confused with him.
Yes.
If they would have drugged that on all 6 episodes, I would have been so mad. But one episode of it, like, I get it. I understood what you guys were going for. Yeah. And then at the end, when they did it one more time, I was like, they're bringing in Jake. That's cool.
Yeah. That ended up being so I will say the end credit scene, of course, is Hyro is being led into a limousine where he talks to Khonshu, who's looking all decked out, which is an image from the comics, which is awesome. And then Lockley shows up and then shoots Harrow, which I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed in that part. I kind of wanted Harrow.
Oh yeah, that's because you want Ethan Hawke.
That's just because I want Ethan Hawke to keep being around in the show, but now it's sort of like now the only way he can come back is like in a ethereal form of like, you remember you killed me? Like, oh,
no, he'll come back as a tremor.
Just full circle from Kevin Bacon to Ethan Hawke. That'd be fantastic. But yeah, that was the only thing about the post credits. I was like, Ethan Hawke's dead.
Yeah, and
it's pretty definitive.
I really thought that they would turn. And then that would be the end of the scene, you know? But he's like, pew, pew, pew. I was like, oh, yeah, no you killed him.
Yeah,
got
he's
it.
Dead. Yeah.
Okay. Jake Lockley is heartless. Got it. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm very excited to learn more about that character eventually in whatever form. But speaking of other forms, where do you... Oh, before we go anywhere, before I was going to just transition to something else, what did you think of Layla and her transitions throughout the show? We haven't really talked about her specifically. I really had a great time with her in her introduction. I know nothing for her as a character. I had no idea what's going on with her new powers. Is she an established character in the comic book? Does she have... No?
At least not anything that I've read. And I'm sure if you go and get on like the Wikipedias or whatever, ending explained. Yeah. Any of those ending explained videos, like they'll talk about it, and I just don't have that lore of her.
Yeah.
So I was super pleasantly surprised that she became a freaking MCU hero. I was like, hell yeah, and she looked really cool.
Looked cool as hell.
And the gold wings were dope. Like, I was very, very into her arc. I also liked that she was like, Khonshu, absolutely not. But then this other deity that's been following her around, she's like, yeah okay.
That deity's funny because I think she's a good guy, but the way that she like manipulates dead bodies, it's the creepiest thing. It's some weird Evil Dead shit. Like, hi, like they're literally a puppet,
and she's like struggling to like keep the body up as she talks. Like, yeah.
So you'd be my avatar. I'm like, I don't know. You're really creepy.
Nope, you are just possessing dead people. No, thank you.
Yes.
And then for her to finally like accept it, like that was awesome. And I hope we get to see more of a team up. But
yeah, there's that cool moment where the little girl's like, oh my God, like Egyptian superheroes. She's like, yes, I am. It's like, that's actually kind of cool.
I saw Wes, he's a kind of funny best friend on Twitter today. He was like, I am all for diversity. He's like, but that line really struck me as odd.
It is a thing that is pointed out. Yeah.
I think it's just so blunt
Yes. it's
for
very
like
blunt.
all this chaos to be going on, and for somebody to be like, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." When I read the tweet, I saw it before I watched the episode, and I was like, "They actually say that?" And then when the line came up, I was like, "Yeah, that was pretty direct." Like,
Yeah.
I feel like you could have had an Egyptian little girl like looking off and being very like admiring her and all this kind of stuff, but that was a
Yeah, no, it
I
wasn't
don't know.
directly pointed like looking at you like we did it. We did it. Apparently, it was asked for.
Like, you just
Yeah,
picture any little boy like seeing Moon Knight, and then Moon Knight's hood comes down, and he's like, "Are you a Jewish superhero?" And Oscar Isaac being like, "I mean, yeah, I guess."
yeah, no, for sure.
Loved her representation. Thought the line was odd. That's what
Yeah,
I'll say.
like the representation part of like when you're doing the flashbacks for the scene where, with learning the history of Mark and Steven, they have like the yarmulke and stuff, and like that to me that was like those little subtle things. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
I get that. And then same thing with Lockley of him just speaking Spanish. I'm like,
Yes.
oh, I get it
Hell yeah.
immediately.
Awesome.
And I'm like, cool, representation in different ways. Fantastic. But then it's like, are you an Egyptian superhero? I get it. There are things that I in the moment I liked it, but talking
Sure.
about it and thinking it was like,
And thinking through it,
it's
like-
super just like right in
Yeah.
the face thing. I still like it. I'll say that. But still, I
Sure.
understand how like
And
it's
I,
literally.
and I can definitely like, it's by no means show ruining. I can
Yeah.
look over it. It's just like the writing, like somebody wrote that line and it, like a director looked at it and said, "Yeah, let's go ahead and shoot this."
Yeah.
Like if Jake Lockley turned around and Ethan Hawke goes, "Am I about to be assassinated by a Latino superhero?" You'd just be like, "I mean, I guess." Like he's speaking Spanish, so
Love it. I love it. That's so funny. Yes. So, but yes, Layla's character looks awesome regardless.
Yeah.
She
was awesome.
I have no. It was cool to like discover a new superhero in the MCU that I didn't know already, which is awesome. You know, like as I've seen pretty much everything, including like all the new characters that are kind of like introducing through like Young Avengers.
yeah, totally.
I think Rambeau was the last one that I knew not much about, but I knew it was a superhero already. This was a character I had no idea. And for them to just be now part of the MCU, I'm excited to see who they team up with next. So we'll see.
With the age of the internet, like I expected speculation.
Yes.
Like, will so and so turn into so and so? Like
Yes.
you kind of always get those little drips or whatever. No, she just
nothing.
popped out in a costume, and I was like, hell yeah, this is great.
And it was awesome. Yeah, 100%. When they do the crossfight with them fighting all the dudes in the alley,
Yes.
I'm about to watch the episode again just because I want to see that fight on a bigger screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's really, really cool. So I'll transition, and then we'll pretty much close out the show here. But essentially, I want to ask you, where would you want to see Moon Knight pop up next? Do you want a season 2? Do you want to see him actually appear somewhere else? What are your thoughts? I have some thoughts. I want to hear yours first.
There's 3 things I would like to see with this character, and all 3 at the same time are not feasible, and I understand that.
Oh, okay.
I would like a season 2. I would like a like Dark Avengers type scenario with him and Blade and Black Knight and throw Daredevil in there. Like I'd like to see that team up. And then I would really like, if they didn't do a season 2, I would love a Deadpool style R-rated movie of Moon Knight. That's who that character really is.
Yeah.
He's the one that got turned into a meme because there's a very real comic book panel of him saying, "Dracula, where's my money, you dumb fucking nerd?" Like he there are comics out there where he calls the Avengers drunk to like figure out what the hell he needs and like what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
Like this character has a lot of potential to be wild, and I want them to let him be a little wild. This show definitely felt very Marvel tamed, which is fine. I get the audience that they're producing this for, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But we also got to see Jake Lockley like smoke somebody at the end of this thing. So give me a little bit more of that brutality, a little bit more of who Moon Knight I think truly is.
Yeah.
And that would be awesome. I think out of the 3 things I said, that's the least likely scenario. I think the 2 likely scenarios are we get a season 2, and then maybe they team him up with some of these other kind of dark force characters that are coming in.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. I think what I found interesting with the show was, okay, we're getting into this weird sort of like supernaturally, part of the universe connected with gods, right? We've already had that kind of established with Thor and all that. Really, aliens tech is what we've been really focused on and MCU stuff.
Yeah.
I was curious of how they were going to tie that up with potentially that, but they end up not mentioning it. They do kind of tie something up with Bast though from Black Panther, and if I'm not mistaken, that was some vibranium hitting the planet or something like that. So maybe it's still
okay.
Maybe it's still alien tech. Who knows? And I think the other void, which is a word I just learned from the Jeff Lemire run, I think also explains that. But the thing that I was hoping for was that this show would have definitely led into what the hell is Blade doing in London? Because Blade is currently in London as far as we know. Because we heard his voice at the end of Eternals. And he is hanging out, like you said, with the Black Knight. I was hoping that the show would lead in with sort of like a Midnight Suns sort of deal, but 100%. In the Blade movie. And I was hoping that was what Blade was end up being about, where Blade has to fight a.k.a. Dracula or some medieval type of bad guys, which could be reincarnated monsters or whatever.
Sure.
Vampires, of course. Because it's only because of the scene from Eternals that I even go down these routes of like, what could the Blade movie be? Obviously, it could be Blade fight vampires, but you have him set in London. You have this guy who has a medieval sword. I'm like, and now you got this other character who's also tied to like supernaturally stuff. Like, why not
and
bring
living
them
in London
and has a flat in London right now? Like, so all those things were leading together. I'm like, what is Blade's movie going to be? And I really hope it's like Blade and the Midnight Suns take on Dracula and his army of monsters. So cool. And it just me saying that sounds like a fucking painting that I want to see, like
right.
So I'm really hoping that we get some answers as to what is the future of Blade, because there's just too many things that are pointing together that I'm like, please do so. Especially since he seems to be recruiting a team, which Blade for the most part plays alone unless you're in Blade 3.
And then you get Deadpool involved.
And you get Deadpool involved. I mean, why not? At this point, just why not? And just having Mark Spector and Deadpool bounce off each other would be hilarious.
Banter. The comic where those two decide to just fight each other because they know they can heal and they just want to throw down is awesome. One of the coolest groups of panels I've ever seen.
You gotta tell me what book that is. I would love to see that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Also, shout out to the MCU for saying that the possibility of multiple afterlives exists. I thought that was really
that was
interesting.
Such a awesome way to really take that into account, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I would say that I would love her to be in Blade. I would love to see this character again in that movie specifically if we're going to have any of the continuations. But yeah, I wouldn't mind a season 2. I wouldn't mind it to be maybe moving away from the globetrottiness and maybe making it more down to earth. I don't know how you would do that specifically now that everything kind of has been wrapped up into a bow. Like, what is Khonshu up to? Like, what's his goal with Lockley? And, how is Mark and Steven still involved in it in some way? Very curious because they seem to be on some similar page of saving the world of some sort, seemingly at the end of the episode. They say that
I think
at one
season
point.
2, you explore Khonshu actually being bad and going after the council one by one and trying to take down the other gods, and Mark and Steven helping that goal unknowingly while Jake does it knowingly. And I think that season ends with them killing Jake.
Interesting.
As like the evil piece of themselves. I think that's where I would go with that.
It's going to be a wild, because we haven't seen what Jake's form is at all.
Right.
I can imagine it's literally just a fight of 3 Moon Knights.
God, it'd be so good.
All battling each other. Oh, okay. Well, people can dream. And like that, this has been a awesome MCU University extra credit. Thank you so much, Aaron, for being a part of the show and being one of our newest guests.
Thanks for having me. This is so much fun. I'll come on and rant MCU with you anytime.
Maybe we can get you on probably our season 2 of content where basically we could talk about Howard the Duck or the Italian Captain America movie, which we've been joking about doing those movies for a while. But yeah, maybe we'll see you in the future, and I think we should be on the main MCU. We'll talk about that after the show.
Love it.
But I'm gonna go ahead and let you plug away again. Where can people find you on the net?
You can find me on Twitter at Aaronseney, AARONSEANEY. You can also follow Speaking of Stadia at Speak of Stadia, because speaking is too long. And then Give Me 20. That's where we post all of our updates. It's just on my feed, so come check it out there.
All right, sounds good. And of course, you can find me at Night Mute City over there on the Twitters. You can find this episode actually at the Point in Progress YouTube channel where you can watch this video. And if you want the audio version of it, we do have an audio. It should be on all platforms, including Apple and Spotify. That, of course, is MC University. And this has been great. Thank you again so much, Aaron.
Thanks, man. This is awesome.
And until next time. Oh, before we go, just so you know, there will be another extra credit if you're watching this. I believe I'm posting this on Friday. We'll be doing also Stephen Strange, the new release. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Finally the episode that actually might break the show. So very excited to see how that comes together. But until next time, this class is dismissed.
I think I'm losing it.
Real catch you on. You're bloody useless, Stevie.
Stephen. I can't tell the difference between life and dreams.
Thank you.
Lost the contact lens.
Hope you find it.
Thanks.
Now hold the phone.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're alive. What's wrong with you, Mark?
Why did you call me Mark? It must be very difficult. The voice in your head. Shut up! There's chaos in you.